Begin invasion in 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, invaders. My name is Scott. Thanks for taking a ride with me. Don't worry, my eyes are fixed on the road at all times. I am just going through traffic on the way home. Today I'm going to be talking to you about two recent reads that have the same kind of theme mixed in. One is Swashbucklers by Dan Hanks, and the other is The Between by Ryan Leslie. The theme here is kind of video games, a touch of that kind of flair. Not to the extreme of Ready Player One. I feel like that's kind of, it's the looming book when you say video game references, that it goes in that deep. But these books do not go that deep. They're not minuscule elements of trivia through here. You do not really have to be a video game fan to enjoy either of these titles. But they are both kind of horror-ish, and they both deal with video games. So let's get into it. The first one I'll talk to you about is Swashbucklers by Dan Hanks. This is an Angry Robot title. Thank you, Angry Robot. I had listened to the book on audio, which was awesome, and I got it through NetGalley. Hashtag NetGalley. Swashbucklers. This is a story about a group of late adults, I guess you would call them. They're grown, they have kids, they're married, and so on and so forth. And now they have awoken, or a new evil, not a new evil, but an evil has reawoken from their past, but they don't all remember what happened. So it tells a story about Cisco, who goes back to his hometown, and he was infamously hailed as the gas leak kid, because what we get sprinkles of in the story is that long ago, when him and his friends were kids, something we assume exploded or went wrong, and what the media portrayed it to be was just a gas leak. But Cisco knows that something else had happened. His memory is kind of foggy and hazy. He remembers a little bit more than his friends, but what it alludes to is that there was a evil that had been awoken, and the only way that they had been able to defeat it when they were kids was from these like Nintendo controllers that are just controllers, but against this foe they have these magical electrical powers that can actually, you know, shoot things, and the power glove can punch these things. So it was a really cool kind of slow build, and a sprinkling of, like, this is the second part of the story, as what we're understanding now is that this evil has reawoken, and now as adults they have to face it again, whilst trying to remember what happened when they were little. So this is like the sequel, and then when they were kids was like part one, and this is like the follow-up. But this is book one of the story, so this is book one. We're getting this from their point of view as they're adults first, and we're just learning that this had also happened when they were younger, but we don't really know what the story was there. So it has a mashup of different things, and I'll throw out some buzzwords. So it's definitely Ghostbusters. They're fighting with these, you know, pew, and then they have these different personalities. It also has to do with kind of the Goonies, because they're fighting an evil pirate, and they're kind of going into these caves, and so on and so forth. There's a touch of talking animals, fantasy creatures, rock golems, but there's also a touch of reanimated, like, lawn gnomes that are evil and demonic and possessed, and like popsicle stick creatures running around and terrorizing you. So it has those kind of horror tropes of the goofy, like, reanimating of just appliances and things you find in the store that are coming around to kill you. A giant Santa Claus that's smashing things. So it kind of threw in a bit of video game characters terrorizing the town, like the like that Adam Sandler movie Pixels or something. I had never seen it, but it sounded a lot like that from what I understood in the previews. And a little bit of Stranger Things too. So Stranger Things, there wasn't really, I didn't know of like a giant corporation that was doing this, that was doing kind of a cover-up, like Stranger Things is. So we have some of these grown-ass people that are kind of reluctant heroes. They're like, why are we doing this? And as they're fighting now, they kind of get sprinkles of their memories, like, hey, I remember this villain from my childhood, or he remembers my name, and we've all kind of come back full circle again to face them again and defeat them. And Cisco, the main character, now has an 8-year-old son, and he's trying and failing what we learned to raise the kid well, but he's also having to go off and kind of hide his escapades from his family while he's going and fighting and quote-unquote ghost-busting these things around town. And unfortunately, like, dodging the media presence, because when these specters come about and they're fighting him, they interfere with electrical signals, so cameras don't work and cell phones don't work. Just kind of one of those things in the plots that prevents them from ever being caught while they're fighting and ghost busting around town. So Swashbucklers, I think it was a fun read. It's definitely like a popcorn read for, an enjoyable sci-fi action read with a bit of horror elements and a touch of the fantastical things. There's like demons that chase them, but there's also the silly like quips while they're fighting these bad guys, and trying to tell their wives that they're out bowling all nights when they come back with bruises and stuff. And it's just kind of like that thing where they have to get the band back together, but they also kind of have to remain steadfast in their regular lives without leading anyone on that they're doing this. And then hopefully the media will cover it up again, this time as the cast leak and yada yada. So Swashbucklers by Dan Hanks was enjoyable. It's definitely a popcorn read, kind of just a fun sci-fi palate cleanser with some action in it. And it's got a bit of that British humor to it. So I thought it was enjoyable. It was fun. It was a good read. So the next book I'll talk to you about is The Between by Ryan Leslie, and this was an absolute cover purchase, but I got it through NetGalley. And this book is also about a man who discovers like a door buried in his backyard that leads to this kind of house of horrors type thing. He and his buddy Jay, and Jay's like the ultimate dude bro kind of dude. I didn't like his character very much. But he and Jay go down there and start exploring and poking around. They kind of get stuck and trapped and barely escape their way out. So as they're down there, they kind of get stuck. They meet some characters who kind of tell them what the place is. It's called The Between. And they kind of have to figure their way back out. So they get out and they figure out what they're supposed to do with this. So they want to go back in and explore more. They let their neighbor guy know about it, and just by chance, their neighbor is like, "Oh, I know all about The Between. I used to play that game all the time." And they're like, "What game?" So the main characters didn't know it was based off of a 80s text-based computer game that their neighbor Min Woo, who kind of reminds me of Data from the Goonies, so he has a notebook of all these different tips and tricks and encyclopedias of things that he's played in The Between. And so now, equipped with this knowledge, they kind of all go back down into The Between again, explore a little bit more, spend a little bit more time down there. And as they're doing so, they're also kind of inheriting the roles of the villains of the game. Jay turns into like a sadistic Mephisto kind of guy, and Paul turns into somebody else. And then what we learn midway through the book is that Paul comes across another character who he recognizes as like a girlfriend he used to date in high school, but she doesn't know who he is. And it turns out like they never dated in her world. So we figure out that this Between is also a gateway to parallel universes, which I thought was kind of cool. I like that aspect of things. And so The Between was okay. it kind of got weird towards the end. The action was cool. The House of Horrors was kind of cool. The different monsters and obstacles they come across in the book were cool. So it was enjoyable. I thought the narration was a bit lacking, and I think the character work was... The dialogue was very sophomoric, kind of like, oh yeah, here's another stupid joke from this guy. But all in all, it was a good read. I would say check it out. What I'm more interested in is when I looked at the between like Goodreads page, the author's coming out with a sci-fi book next year, and I think I'll read it. I'll give it a shot. Like it wasn't horrible, so I'll stick with the author, Ryan Leslie. I'll read his next book because the cover looks awesome. Again. The synopsis looks pretty cool. It's about memories and a spaceship and things like that. So those are my thoughts on The Between. It was alright. It was just a 3-star kind of read. It was good though. Thanks for NetGalley. Thanks to the author for letting me have a review copy. But those are my thoughts on my 2 reads. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.